Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Sports Community live stream. Today, we wake to the news that more and more winter competitions are being cancelled, particularly in Victoria, where now clubs can't, in hotspots, can't train, can't go, people can't go to training, etc. So what we're seeing is more and more of competitions and clubs pulling up stumps for the year in the winter season. And that brings us back to the dilemma that we're really been talking about for the whole time with COVID is how do we stay connected? How do we ensure that our club community not only comes back, but stays connected with us, with the club through what could really be an 18-month period? One of the things that's starting to come through now is that for the first time, most of the cancellations have been senior sport, but for the first time now, we're starting to hear that junior sport competitions, again, particularly in Victoria, are being cancelled still. In other states where restrictions are easing significantly, we're seeing that roll out and going back towards normal. But really important to, as we move towards normal, ensure that we don't create that COVID cluster within our club. So making sure we're keeping social distancing and all those other, the hygiene, being only healthy and safe people coming onto, or healthy people coming onto our facilities, etc. But in Victoria, it's a little bit different. And so, but regardless of which state and territory you're in, how do we keep people connected to our clubs throughout the off season, throughout the downtimes, throughout the season? And one of the really great ways that I think, and one of the most underutilized strategies for clubs, or even coming at it from a whole range of different angles, for creating the next generation of volunteers, the next generation of coaches, the next generation of officials, is I'm a very, very strong believer that one of the best ways to develop our players is to actually put them through the entry-level coaching courses and the entry-level officials courses, so that they are learning more and more about the sport that they love, the game that they're playing, but they're also looking at it from different perspectives. And I think that's really important. And so through this COVID period, I think what we've seen is a really strong push by peak bodies to encourage people to become coaches, to become officials for the first time. And so let's look at that from a couple of different angles. So Deb, welcome to you. Good morning to you. It always makes me smile to see you joining us. There's 5 people online at the moment. So just say good morning in the chat, join the conversation. I'd love to know what your club does does your club put its players, and parents through the coaching courses and officials courses? Because I think these are a fundamentally great resource for clubs that are not often taken advantage of. So I like the idea of putting, whether it's the leadership group of teams or even whole teams through coaching courses and officials courses. I love the idea. Doing it in groups, though. Don't just try and find 1 or 2 people. Do them in groups, because then they're going through as peers. Then they become what we call the next generation of coaches, officials. So if we've got 14, 15, 16-year-olds, they're the perfect group to be putting through these introductory coaching courses. And on the screen, I've got Cycling New South Wales coaching courses. They're still running a whole heap of coaching courses at the moment, predominantly online. So then what we can be doing with these kids is not only are we teaching them a different angle, different aspect to the support, but what we're doing is then we can mentor them with existing coaches, link them up with existing coaches so they can become assistant coaches for the younger teams, assistant coaches and for the older teams. so that they get to learn this concept of coaching. They become familiar, and they might actually turn into really decide that they would like to coach ongoing in the future. And so the key is, but don't just send them one at a time, send them in groups, because then you're creating a whole philosophy within your club that, hey, we recognize the knowledge that comes with coaching, and B, the learnings that they get from doing the course, they can implement both into the way they play and maybe the way they coach, or the way that they support the coach, or the way that they respond to the coach and give feedback to the coach and engage and interact with the coach. Now, whether it's coaching or officials, the coaching courses and officials courses are great resources for involving others that are not typically involved in the club. So karting as a generalization, and karting Australia, when the COVID virus started, was almost in the first week launched a really strong strategy to attract new officials to the sport through their officials training academy. And one of the reasons for that was because the acknowledgement that COVID would linger, and most of their officials were in that high risk group. So when the sport came back, they were not necessarily going to come back at the same time. So they embarked on that strategy. Really, really clever, really a lot of foresight in week 1 or 2 of COVID. It was great execution. But one of the things that happened with that is it wasn't just, excuse me, typically in karting, it's the dad and the child. The dad's the mechanic, the child's the racer and the participant. And the mum and the siblings often aren't necessarily as heavily involved as there's no reason that they shouldn't be. But what we saw coming through the officials course was a large percentage of the mothers and the sisters and the friends and family who weren't currently involved in the sport coming into the sport and learning those basic skills, and then being welcomed back by the club, because they needed those people, but B, it was just a really good thing. So I love the element of putting our players and our athletes through the coaching courses, even just as a development strategy for their own playing development. But I think as a way of staying connected, this is a fantastic way of keeping people linked to your club, linked to your sport, so that the other behaviors, other habits don't form in this period where they may or may not be participating like they do. So this is one of the things that we're looking at to make sure that we keep people connected, is to create ways of keeping that connection that create real value. So we looked at working bees, and now that creates real value. We looked at I can't remember. We looked at one other thing that we looked at, which was again about creating value. And now we're looking at coaching courses and officials courses that again create real value, keep the link between the player, the club, the player, the sport, keep them thinking about it, keep them getting excited about how they're going to come back and participate. And what I love, it gets them excited about how they can be part of the volunteering force of your club and really strongly contribute to your club. So I'm Steve Pallas. I look forward to tomorrow with Esport Friday. Our guest for Esport Friday is Chris Smith from Big Esports. And Chris is a esport consultant who a number of peak sporting bodies and associations have been contacting, asking Chris how to run a virtual online tournament or esport tournament for their members. And I think very, very interesting listening to Chris about why they're coming to him. And this is not just because of COVID. I think this is going to be an ongoing sort of strategy. Well, I believe it should be. Let me rephrase that. I believe it should be that we'll see the evolution of our sports associations start to offer both the physical sporting option and the virtual sporting option. So that's that one. Next week, I'm really, really excited that we start the first of our 5-week pilot series, if you like, partnering with Vic Health to run a 5-week program on Wednesdays, and we're going to call it Doing Sport Differently Wednesday. So we're going to looking at how participation has changed, how people want to participate has changed, and how to access that huge group of people that want to participate in sport but aren't. So each week for the next 5 weeks, we'll be having a different interview with a different club who has introduced a program that's been very effective at bringing in new members to their club. So all about building participation, all about getting back to the sport, and all about getting as many people happy and healthy in a way that makes it easy for the club. So that's what we've got next week. Lots of interviews, which is where we'll start to go. But for today, thank you for your for watching this video or attending live. Also, starting next week, we do have building off the Doing Sport Differently series. We also have a 3-week webinar program on recruiting volunteers and recruiting participants starting next Thursday, 3-week series. And I think that's $39.95. We'd love to have you on board. We'd love for you to come and join us in that conversation as we look at new ways to present sport to our community that'll be really successful. If you want to join that webinar, just click on the link and that'll take you straight through. Is it a 5-week program, Susanna? No, this one's it's a 3-week program and it is $39.95. What we do have is we have a large number of councils and sports that buy seats in the webinars and then give them to their clubs for free. So maybe that's something you'd like to consider at Cumberland. The point of these is not as a sales spiel though, but certainly it's looking at participation and recruitment through a different lens, and we'll actually be looking at using the Vic Health framework that they've developed with La Trobe Uni to start to look at sports participation and what we offer in a very different lens to just simply offering competitive sports. So I'm really excited about that webinar program. I'm really excited about interviewing the 5 clubs coming up over the next 5 Wednesdays about 5 completely different programs, 5 completely different target audiences that have all created volunteers in their club and transitioning people into their more traditional competitive formats as well in most of the cases. So that's what we've got to look forward to. Really excited. School holidays, so that's always another exciting thing in our household. So until tomorrow, I'm Steve Pallas, and thank you for being part of our sports community. Oh, as normal, I've lost the button. So I will see you tomorrow for eSport Friday. Susanna, if you want to give me a call and talk about it, love to have a chat. We'll chat soon.